cerebral. This is very cerebral. Give it up, please, for Sam Gross, VP of everything at Unisys. Storm clouds. Take it away, sir.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. So how are you? You good? Okay. Nothing better than an evening in New York and a bunch of great exhibits to look at after I'm done. So this is a very, very passionate subject for me when I get a chance to talk to people about the cloud. You're all here because it's, I imagine, kind of like a really important subject for you. So I hope that as I kind of go through this, I actually reinforce what you're thinking. And that's the whole idea. And so I wanted to talk about how cloud is a disruptive nature in the IT industry. And I want to talk about something called the new normal. And I'm very thankful that Jeremy used the word normal when he referred to my name because he usually doesn't. So a couple things that you keep on hearing. And, every once in a while as I go out and I talk to the industry, I kind of begin to worry that people don't absolutely believe it. They hear it. But cloud computing is going to change everything. It is a very significant change in the entire ecosystem. And as we were listening to 3Tera talk about how, this is kind of just a piece of this and a piece of this and a piece of this, very true, right? We've had a bunch of disruptive technologies in the industry for a number of years, and they all begin to coalesce around cloud. Cloud means something different to everybody. It is clearly the representation of a new normal. And that means different economic model. That means rethinking what we do, what we hang on to, what we believe in, but not fundamentally what we deliver. Except for the fact that what we deliver will be consumed in new and different ways. And there's clearly a couple of challenges that we want to talk about. We want to talk about security. We want to talk about this huge shift around mobile access and how the cloud powers that. And we really want to begin to think about a whole new generation of employees. What is really changing? What are all the factors in the ecosystem that are changing around us? So, business forces. Clearly, we're coming out of an economic downturn. Some people feel faster, some people feel a little bit slower, but clearly a focus on deferring the costs. Are we coming out of it? Well, I ask you to think back to the 80s, think back to the 90s, after the internet bubble, after everything that we've seen. Has anything ever really returned to the level that it was before? The answer is no. History teaches us that. So we have an economic downturn. We began to really look at capital spending, refresh rates, and things like that. Now that we're kind of beginning to come out of it, is it going to come back? I suggest no. IT bottleneck, right? You hear this again and again and again when we talk about cloud computing. The whole concept around provisioning and service. How long does it take? These concepts around mapping our supply and our demand. Decapitalizing IT, right? Everybody thinks that's a great idea, but is that really happening, or are you just moving the capital someplace down the value chain, somebody else is picking it up, and you see it in a different form? And then we keep on talking about automated operations, whether it's repurposing, or whether it's orchestration, or whether it's web self-service. In the meantime, over on the other side, all these things that keep on happening over on the technology side. Well, today, when you go in and you begin to talk about physical infrastructure, you really have to rethink what you're asking for. You have to rethink what you're telling your CFO. You have to rethink what you're telling your business in that context. And virtualization is everywhere. Think about it, by the way. Just stop for a second and think back. When we all started talking about virtualization, how many of us said, that's okay for like dev and test, but I don't think I can run a production workload on it. Well, here we are. Let's listen very carefully to what we're saying about cloud. Well, it's kind of okay for this and that around the edges, but I don't think I can run my production workload on it. Service management, here's the big challenge, right? It's become a big deal. It's become a big deal in the managed services business, Generation 2, moving to Generation 3 outsourcing, a wide variety of providers, and how do I manage the service? How do I understand where all the piece parts are? And security. Security continues to be the issue. No one trusts their data in the cloud. They just don't. So, perceived barriers. If you look at the public cloud, you say, well, it's security, it's performance. How do I know how my application is performing? How do I manage that? And, oh, for God's sakes, I don't want to rewrite my applications. We went through that in Y2K. I don't think we're going to go through it again. Well, then let's go do private cloud. Well, but I have a big sunk investment in everything that I have. And clearly, these are new technologies. Everybody in this room is going to walk into the exhibition booth. You're going to look at all these new vendors and all these new names. You're going to start asking yourself, where do I get the skills? How do I know what to pick? How do I know what the differences are? There's very clearly a steep learning curve that we're about to go through. And by the way, for private cloud, I'm not going to rewrite my apps either. So you have to realize that cloud computing redefines the way that consumers, whether you are an IT developer, whether you're an end user, whether you're a business user, redefines the way that we think about IT and about the enterprise. And I don't know if you all really feel it yet, but you're going to. 2010. So at Unisys, when we really took a look at the cloud challenge several years ago, and we began to build the strategy and begin to build some technology, we realized that there were a couple of steps that were really necessary in order to help clients make the transition from traditional data center into cloud. And that started with helping clients and IT organizations understand exactly how do you progress from virtualized environments to automated environments into even the concept of internal cloud or public cloud. And here's the reality. Today, what's being put in front of you are a whole bunch of software and products and quite frankly, managed clouds, and they're all being presented as what I refer to as the do-it-yourself cloud. If we are going to take advantage of the benefits of cloud, if we understand the benefits of cloud, we need some help. So that's really where everybody's strategy should start, and it's not bad to ask for help. The second thing that we did at Unisys is we built the Unisys Secure Cloud. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about that, but I'm especially going to spend time talking about security because the bottom line message is you're going to hear everything is secure. Well, security in the cloud is more real than we perceive it to be. But here's the reality. Cloud, multi-tenant environments require a whole new way of thinking about security, a whole new classification and category of security products. So we came into the cloud business, we built a public cloud, we delivered infrastructure as a service and platform as a service and unified communications as a service, virtual office as a service, DR as a service. We have everything as a service. Everything's as a service, but fundamental issue, people have to be comfortable for any service that their data is secure. But in addition to a public cloud and a private cloud, where is this industry heading? There should be no question in anybody's mind that we are all going to end up in the hybrid cloud world. That is where we will be. That is where this industry will settle because there will always be a reason to keep something in your private data center. And, you know, I love it when I talk about this. People say, well, what do you think it's going to be? And I'll say, well, maybe I think it's going to be ERP and web storefronts. And somebody else say, well, no, SAP is going to put everything in the cloud, or it's going to be this or that. It's going to be different for every company because at the end of the day, every company has a different strategy. So the answer for each of you will be different. However, it is going to become more and more difficult for you to justify why you're putting messaging or, you know, portal services in a private data center and spending the kind of money that you used to spend. So, you know, I love my friends at Gartner. You can just read how everything is shifted in Gartner. In fact, you know, Gartner took a look at the industry, and if you just look back 2 years ago, cloud computing wasn't even in the top 10, and boom, right? Number 1 and number 2, virtualization. By 2012, utility and cloud computing will account for 50% of the demand for managed IT infrastructure services. What does that mean? That means that if you are not rolling your own and you are using a managed service provider, that you need to begin to ask today, exactly how are those services that you're paying for, how will they be transformed and delivered out of the cloud, and then what will be the benefits that you will see? And I believe you need to be aggressive and you need to ask that question. And if you're not getting the answers that you want, you need to really think about that. So I talk about the new normal. Well, as you walk around and you talk to different people, you're going to hear about stack after stack after stack after stack. So I thought that one of the things that I would do is kind of like define a very simplistic view of the new stack. So at the bottom layer, we have all of our servers and storage. And we have all the same players in that space. And by the way, does it make a difference? Probably a little bit of a difference. Some vendors have some features that make some things a little bit better or a little bit worse. But at the end of the day, fairly commoditized. Virtualization? Well, we all kind of got used to virtualization on the back of VMware. Very successful. Started on the desktop, ended up in the data center. Now today, Xen, Hyper-V, KVM. So, well, it is what it is. But here's the challenge in cloud computing. Until we integrate cloud computing into the standard supply chain in our IT organization, we can't consume it. And one of the challenges that we have today is we keep on standing up cloud computing in this isolated tower and say, oh, we have a cloud. It's over there. But you know what? Every IT organization, every one of you in this room, you have a service request process, you have a governance process, you have availability, you have configuration management, you have all of those pieces. Your cloud must be part of that end-to-end supply chain. And then at the bottom, of everybody's requirement list, and then at the top is security. So how are we going to do it different? We have to secure both our data while it's in motion, whether it's on private data links or whether it's over the internet. And then I think every single one of you is worried about your data when it sits on the SAN in the cloud. Data at rest. And we can talk about subpoenas, and we can talk about air gap. We can talk about our data and how it's hosted with respect to our competitors. At the end of the day, we need to rethink both data in motion and data at rest. So this is just a simple example, right? You might have a different definition for this, but this is kind of what the stack at Unisys looks like. So, of course, we go down to the bottom, and we use a lot of Intel technologies, we use a lot of EMC technologies. We go up a level to virtualization, some VMware, some Hyper-V, some Xen. It doesn't really make a difference. When we get to provisioning, a number of our own products, but, pick your own. Pick your own. Here's the key. It's not the provisioning tool, it's the content. Doesn't matter which tool. You're going to go out there and you're going to see all sorts of different tools. The question is, where is the content? The content is what drives the orchestration. That's what you're buying, not the toolkit. And then when you get up to the next layer, here's the interesting thing. How are you going to manage the cloud? How will clouds be managed in the future going forward? How about the fact that clouds will be managed through the cloud? So day one at Unisys, that's what we did. We started to manage the cloud through our converged remote infrastructure management. So that's a big key to understand. How will you manage this, especially as you begin to have multiple clouds all over the globe in various different data centers, right? And then as perhaps you have them in different providers, and then when you finally hit the hybrid. And then for security, I'm going to talk about stealth security. And I'm going to explain that to you. But what I want you to understand is not the product, but I want you to understand what this new category of cloud security means. Is that a question in the back? How can it manage all the way through? Well, I'm going to answer your question. you're probably going to be amazed, but I have a slide that's going to cover that. So, but before I get to that, I'm just going to spend one moment on the new normal. So, you're going to hear for the next 2 or 3 days about the new normal. You're going to hear in all different words, right? You may leave believing it, or you may leave not believing it. But I'll ask you to think back to this day that you spent here at the Jacob Javits Center and some of the presentations that you heard, because this industry will shift. You will see an entire new class of providers. That doesn't mean that the traditional guys aren't going to be in the same business, but a lot of the traditional guys have a lot of business they don't want to cannibalize. So that's going to create big space for new people. And you're going to see a greater degree of standardization, not all the way at the very top levels, but the things in the plumbing that don't really make a difference. I'd argue that it won't make a difference which orchestration engine you use. What will make a difference is the process that you're orchestrating. Physical infrastructure, probably fairly a thing of the past. That means it'll exist, but you're not going to buy it the way that you used to buy it. And here's the big challenge. All of the consumers, whether it's your business unit or your end users, are going to have all new expectations. I referred to that for years as the Ziff-Davis syndrome. Right? That's when your boss is sitting on the train on his way into work and he's reading one of their publications and he walks into the office and he says, look, I read about this. Why can't I have it? And you're going to see more and more of that. Why? Because the cloud is all around us. Whether it's location-based services on your cell phone, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google Mail, it's all around us. So, but you still come back to the question in the corner, what are the barriers? The barrier is security. So now we begin to talk about the disruptive technologies that are going to make this happen. So here's the debate. Was the disruptive technology the internet? Was the disruptive technology the browser? Was the disruptive technology client-server? Was the disruptive technology virtualization? Well, the answer probably is they all played a very important part, but I argue that it's the security technology for cloud that's going to make a difference. So here's a set of questions that you ask. So how do you secure your data outside of your firewall? How do you make sure that there's absolutely under no conditions unauthorized visibility to your data in a shared computing environment? How do you make sure that the cloud administrators don't accidentally provide access to your resources to somebody else, don't accidentally ship your data off or transmit it electronically to somebody else, put it on a tape and ship it to the wrong address? And we all sit and worry about this breach of the hypervisor, right? We all lay awake at night. I know I do. Do any of you guys sleep? I'm worried about that all the time, right? I guess you're not. And then compliance. Everybody's going to talk about compliance. So cloud providers' auditing procedures, actually there's a lot of talk in the industry about exactly what do you audit, right? Chris Hoff, if you read his blog, talks a lot about that. And so various providers who have various footprints. It's a big deal as we're in this emerging industry. Kind of one of the conflicts that we have is the traditional providers who have the data centers are all over the world and they have the infrastructure are the guys who don't want to cannibalize their business. On the other hand, all the new upstarts don't have the data centers and all the places that you need in order to address compliance. So the question is, would you be all in? Would you be all into the cloud if you were convinced, if you saw a technology, if you saw a mechanism that said that your data would be secure? So, what does secure mean, right? Do you build it from the top down or the bottom up? Well, the fact is it's a stack. And we all start with our SAS 70 Type 2 data centers. We all talk about ISO 27001 certifications. We all talk about ISO 20000 and ITIL v3 compliance. We all talk about, IDS and HIDS. We talk about security, event correlation. We talk about analytics and logs and all those kinds of things. And what are we doing? We're securing the perimeters. What is at stake in the cloud is your data. And the top layer of a good security model is securing your data. So what we did at Unisys is we developed a technology which is called Stealth. Two solutions, one for the network and one for storage. They are an integral part of how we deliver cloud computing. And what this particular technology does is a combination of data dispersal and encryption mechanisms that ensures that a couple things are true. That number one, with a sniffer, with deep packet inspection technology, with any kind of technology that you can think of, and quite frankly, most of the federal government, you cannot see the data in motion. The technology actually connects to the socket layer in the app, so it actually traverses through the hypervisor. The hypervisor actually cannot see that data. The application can see the data. In terms of the permissions, how do you make sure that a cloud administrator doesn't grant permissions to something that they shouldn't? Well, the reality is that this technology binds to your ALDEP, to your directory, to your permissions, and then propagates them through the system. So therefore, if you think about it, the data in the cloud looks nothing more than clear water running through a set of copper pipes. We know that there's water in there. We know that it came from somewhere. We know it's going somewhere, but we can't see it. Only you, only a member of a community of interest for that data can actually see the data. So when you begin to think, and just stop for a second and think about, when you think about cloud, you say, well, I'd like to do public cloud because that's where the economies are, but multi-tenancy adds an extra challenge. Well, that's because we're solving multi-tenancy problems in general in this industry using traditional mechanisms of firewalls and other types of air gap, separating storage off on separate storage devices, zoning, et cetera, et cetera. So the key is, unless if you change the way that you think about security, if you do it the same way, you're going to get the same result. You will get a fundamentally marginally secure environment. You need to add the concept of virtual private data networking. So if you solve that problem, then what do you get? Do you get a different way of hosting? No. You get the new world. The new world is that everything is going to be mobile and wireless. By 2013, most people believe that mobile devices will take over in terms of the most common access to the internet. Well, what does that mean? That means that the whole mechanism of provisioning network, it's no longer provisioned, you select it, and where you get your data from, aka the cloud, will be the reality. So you will see a whole variety of services that are going to live in the cloud, all the way from the native apps to the backup. So between 2010, 2013, and 2015, this industry will shift in ways that are very significant. And why is that important? Because so is the workforce. The fact is that we are dealing with a multi-generational workforce. We now have baby boomers, we have Gen Xers, and we have the millennials, all in the workforce at the same time, all who relate to technology in very different ways. And meeting those requirements and satisfying those experiences is going to become the new challenge for IT. And cloud will be the mechanism to do that. We know that through all of our polling that the majority of millennials prefer their own personal technology. We know that consumerization of IT is on an unstoppable march. What does all of that mean to us? Does that mean we can continue to deliver IT in the data center in the traditional way that we always have? I posit that the answer to that is no. So, I just want to remind you that the cloud is not a do-it-yourself environment yet. It will be one day, but you need providers who can provide both the services and the security. Quite frankly, the rest of it in between is going to work itself out. Yes? So the thing that's interesting, so the question was what does the stealth technology really do, and what layers can you get to? Here's the reality around stealth, and I used to do that. I used to put up a slide with an IP address, and I used to say, guys, go at it. The reason we call it stealth is that when you change the format and the structure of the payload, which is one of the things that stealth does, you can't see it. So the issue is if you can't see it, you can't attack it, you don't know that it's there. And by the way, the big challenge with this level of security is as you kind of commercialize it and you create logs and the other types of things that the commercial side of the industry wants, you actually kind of soften it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, you cannot see the data, you cannot see the addresses, you cannot attack it. And that technology allows us to stand up tall in the industry and say that item number one, we deliver the most secure cloud in the marketplace. Number two, we've got the global reach in our data centers. Number three, I can't tell you how many years. Think back UNIVAC. When you think Unisys, think UNIVAC. Think about almost the beginning of computing. Think about a company that has gone through and helped our clients through more transformations in the IT industry than almost anybody else I can think of. And expertise and experience in the data center to help our clients walk through that once again. Purpose-built cloud, and here's the key, no application changes, because guess what? Not one of you is going to get anybody to refactor any of your applications to put them out in the cloud. Is this patented technology? You bet. Yes? Here's the deal. You come and give me your business card, I'm going to send you an IP address.
That's a good idea. We could take two more questions because you know what comes next. A welcome reception. Even Sam can't compete.
He's going to kick me out.
Sam can't compete against a welcome reception. Here's a question, sir.
What's the trend in the hosting environment? You see hosting companies other than Rackspace or Navisite taking the initiative because they're here today.
Yep.
You see that as an indicative or a trend for the rest of the large hosting companies?
Well, I'll tell you, hosting providers, DR providers, and stick-in-the-mud managed service providers will all cease to exist if they don't change. And you're seeing that in the industry.
That was a straight answer.
How's that?
That was a straight answer.
Well, thank you very much.
Sam Gross, the one and only Sam Gross of Unisys, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you know where to head next, and it looks like you're going to be running there. I will see you on the other side. Thank you so much again, Sam.
Thank you.